Hello, installing the KDE Plasma desktop on the Alpine Linux operating system is now significantly easier because setup-desktop now has a Plasma option. Thank you for helping and subscribing to this YouTube channel. This is the Alpine Linux Wikipedia page. This is the operating system. This is the official homepage, alpinelinux.org. Let's find the download ISO and install it in a QEMU virtual machine. We should select the standard ISO version for x86-64. I have finished downloading the ISO file. Now let's open the virtualization software virtual machine manager, Virt Manager, and we're going to create a new virtual machine. File, new virtual machine, ISO, forward, browse, Alpine standard ISO. As virtual machine template, I'm going to use Arch Linux. 10 gigabytes random access memory, 14 vCPUs, 200 gigabytes NVMe, Alpine, KDE, customize, finish. I'm going to force the note a bit. I want to use UEFI, not BIOS. The rest of the settings in here should be okay. VirtIO disk and VirtIO network interface card, USB tablet, begin installation. The only thing that I have changed is I want the virtual machine to use UEFI, not BIOS. The Alpine Linux ISO does not support secure boot. Press enter. We get to this boot device selection menu. In here we select EFI firmware setup, device manager, secure boot configuration, attempt secure boot on after the next restart. I have pressed the space key. And now we want to save F10. How do we do that? Y and escape a number of times. I want to reset. Let's see if we still have the ISO file. We don't. Let's shut down the machine. Add the ISO again. Apply. And start the virtual machine again. Yeah, that was interesting because inside the boot order it doesn't say anything about the CD-ROM, but then somehow the virtual machine knew it needed to actually boot from the CD-ROM because there's no operating system on the VirtIO disk. So we're now running the virtual machine in live CD mode. And from this point on, I'm going to need my notes for installing the operating system. My wiki page, mariusp.github.io. In here we have the second link, which is how to install Linux and other operating systems. In here I'm going to search for Alpine Linux. So I have the Alpine standard ISO. I have booted from DVD. I should log in as the user root without password. And then I want to run the executable setup-alpine. Okay, select keyboard layout none. Enter fully qualified system name Alpine KDE, the same name as the virtual machine. Network interface card, the VirtIO Ethernet ETH0. DHCP client, nothing manual, password for the user root, time zones, America, New York, new underscore, and then York. Okay, and then this is for HTTP proxy, no such thing. And then APK mirrors. So we want to select two things in here. Mirror number one, which is the default mirror, which is the Alpine Linux CDN. But we also want to add the community repository, which is option C. So I'm going to enter C, and hopefully both options will be done at the same time. Nope. So C has just enabled the community repository. And now I'm going to select the default option here, which is mirror 1, the CDN. We want a user. No means it will not create a user. The user root will be the only one. And otherwise, I need to actually specify the name of the user. So don't write yes in here, write the actual name of the user. Administrator in my case. Full name, new password. SSH key. I want OpenSSH SSH server. I want to install to the Virtio disk, VDA. I want the simplest option in here, which is sys. I don't want LVM or encryption. Next up, if I really want to erase the not formatted yet Virtio disk, yes. So we're using UEFI with secure boot disabled, which means a specific layout of the disk. We're going to use GRUB as the bootloader. And that's about all of the features of the installer wizard setup minus Alpine. We're still going to run another part of the installation wizard, which is for setting up the desktop. But meanwhile, we can restart the computer. So let's reboot. How do we do that? Let's actually shut this thing down. There's no such thing. Let's see if we can shut it down like this. Okay, we want to look at the settings of the virtual machine. First of all, we don't want the installation ISO inside the CD-ROM drive any longer. And that's about all of the settings. We're going to start the virtual machine. And we can stop using the graphical user interface console. So this virtualization software to connect to the virtual machine for a while, because we have the SSH server OpenSSH installed, so we can connect using that, which will allow us to actually do copy paste, which is a good thing. So network interface card, let's get the IPv4 address. Okay, SSH, the name of the user that we have just set up, administrator. Ctrl-Shift-V. Yes. Password. Okay, let's see the rest of the instructions. So before actually arriving at the point where we can run the executable setup wizard setup minus desktop, I'm going to do some of the settings that I usually do. So first of all, let's make sure that this user can become the user root. Do as su. It worked. Let's install all of the possible updates. I have used the selection inside Firefox and then middle click to paste the selection. I'm going to install some software packages that I usually use at the command line. I have the text user interface editor Nano and MC, the text user interface file manager. And also I prefer the bash command line shell. Let's see if bash was already installed. Nope. Okay, I want to change the default shell. And for this, I'm going to use the package shadow. I'm going to change the shell of the user root. I'm going to exit being the user root, and I'm going to be the user administrator again. I'm going to change the shell, the default shell of the user administrator also. I'm going to become the user root again. And now finally, I'm going to install KDE Plasma Desktop. Okay, in here, I will select the second option, which is Plasma. We're going to install hundreds and hundreds of packages because we want the entire KDE Plasma Wayland session. We're going to need additional software. And because KDE Plasma doesn't have support for a KDE Plasma X11 session inside Alpine Linux, so we're forced to use Wayland. We're also going to need to install to make sure that X Wayland works correctly. Some applications will require X Wayland. SDDM has been installed and configured automatically for us. Let's continue with the wiki page from the Alpine Linux wiki. So in here it says that internet connectivity might not work great because KDE Plasma prefers that we install the network manager, networking management software. And for X Wayland, we also need to run setup xorg base. So let's see what that thing is, a package. Yeah, let's just run this executable. So who am I? User root, setup xorg base. Okay, so what it did is it installed the xorg server, some bit probably fonts for X, Mesa, and lib input for xorg. Okay, at this point, we should start using the virtualization software because I don't know of any way to to connect to the Alpine Linux KDE Plasma Wayland only session remotely using, for instance, the remote desktop protocol or VNC or something similar. Unfortunately, for a transitional period, I'm going to be forced to actually use the virtualization software to connect to virtual machines, which I totally do not like. Let's restart the computer, which doesn't work. How do we do that? So hopefully this time it boots in graphical user interface mode into the SDDM desktop manager. And in here, we'll be able to log in as the user that we have created during the install, which is called administrator. So this would be it. This is how you install KDE Plasma on Alpine Linux using the new support inside the install wizard setup-desktop for the KDE Plasma desktop. Additionally, I'm going to do some next of the steps that I usually do inside virtual machines. So in here, as you can see, it says that network manager service is not running. Again, KDE Plasma prefers that all Linux operating systems that install KDE Plasma also install network manager. We have the Firefox web browser pre-installed out of the box. And surprisingly, the Discover KDE Plasma App Store does support APK packages. And we can see that in the settings where it says that the Alpine backend, APK backend for Discover is enabled, and that we have the main and community APK binary package repositories enabled, the official ones from the most important Alpine Linux mirror, which is the CDN, which is probably the fastest. Okay, let's see what applications come pre-installed. All applications. So we have the KDE Plasma desktop with its basic set of applications and other software libraries, etc. So we have the package manager, the graphical user interface app store, the archiver, file manager. I have installed myself Emacs. Firefox is the default web browser, which is a good solution. GwenView image viewer, the info center, and system monitor. I don't see the help center here, which is a bug. Let's actually fix some of these issues. So console, I want it to be favorited, so add to favorites. Let's become the super user. Okay, so K help center must be installed. APK search K help center. So that's the way probably to install it. APK add. Okay, let's make sure that we have a element in the KDE Plasma start menu that's named help, and that we have help center there. Correct. Let's see if we have the help for instance, the application that's pre-installed, which is the archiver arc. From the menu, help, where is it? More, show menu bar, help, and then handbook. and the Arc handbook is not pre-installed, which is a bug. How do we find it? Arc doc probably. So let's install it. apk add Yeah, now we have the product manual for the application Arc, the unarchiver, but it doesn't look okay. Maybe I just need to restart my computer or something. I don't see the CSS, the images, just HTML. Okay, so if you're installing a full desktop with your Linux operating system's installer and you're installing some KDE applications, why not install their product manual? It makes sense. You bother to install hundreds and hundreds of packages to have a full graphical user interface desktop environment. Let's also install the documentation for the applications that we install. Okay, let's see what else can we improve in here. Let's see if we can change the screen resolution. So we want something less than 1080p, or maybe 1080p exactly. How do we do that? Let's see if we can go 1080p and full screen the virtual machine. Hopefully this works. Okay. Let's continue a bit. I want in here, in the KDE Plasma start menu, favorited the text editor. I'm not sure which one is available. It's Kwrite and Kate both. So I usually use Kate and I want it to be favorited. What other applications I feel are missing in here and should be pre-installed? So the selection looks pretty okay. There's no audio video players, which is okay. There's an image viewer, you can take screenshots. There's a PDF viewer, and most importantly, you have a text editor, a terminal, and the web browser. I'm not sure exactly why Color Paint is installed. It's an application that's similar to MS Paint on Windows. Okay, I could feel right at home in this environment. Again, if I were to use KDE Plasma on Alpine Linux on a real hardware, I would probably want to have all of the hardware working, which means network manager, which means Bluetooth, GPU acceleration, etc. But since we're in a virtual machine, we can survive even without network manager. Okay, let me do the configurations that I usually do on my system. Let's make the mouse cursor a bit bigger. It's 24 pixels right now. Let's make it 36. Let's make sure that we don't have any edge screen effects. Screen edges, nothing in here, and 15%. Let's see if we have sub-pixel font rendering. Sub-pixel rendering RGB and cool. Okay, and in broadline that's it. Let's make the main KDE Plasma panel not float. How do we do that? Panel configuration. We can change its position. Let's make it not floating. Exit edit mode. Okay, next up we can install software. I'm not sure if FlatHub Flatpaks work. I'm going to actually test this, and then I'm going to install additional software from the Alpine APK repositories, but also from FlatHub if possible. Let's see what's missing for me in here. So I want Crusader. Let's see if it's installable. How do we do that? Home. Install from APK. Probably we also want the documentation. Let's see what other documentation pieces we're missing. Dolphin Discover. Dolphin Doc. Discover. Backend Flatpak. Okay, where is the docs? There's no product manual for Discover. Okay. Meld the difference viewer. And its documentation. What else are we missing? Okay, SM player. Where is it? Home. SM player. Not available. Okay. At this point, I'm going to enable the FlatHub. Let's see how we do that. I'm going to enable it per user just as an experiment. I'm not sure if the fonts work okay. Let's see if we can install more Noto fonts. How do we do that? Alpine Linux packages, this thing. Okay, so we have Latin, Cyrillic, Greek. Let's just install all of them. I'm going to guess that when I install the meta package font minus Noto minus all, it's going to also install font minus Noto minus Arabic, Armenian, Balinese, etc. So maybe the Discover App Store should refresh the list of installable packages, whatever. The list of packages that are installed and can be installed after it installs packages. Let's search for Noto again and see if we got a refresh. Nope. Alpine Linux packages, Noto. And now they are shown as being installed. So the refresh didn't happen after a package was installed, that's an issue. And then even if I navigated away and then back towards the tab Alpine Linux packages, a refresh also did not occur. I needed to actually restart the application discover. Okay, let's see how we enable the FlatHub remote, how we probably need to install the package. Flatpak. Okay, and let's see how we enable it. Where's the documentation? Setup on Alpine Linux. How do we find Alpine in here? So I have already installed Flatpak using Discover. I probably have installed Discover backend Flatpak. How do we find out? Why isn't this list sorted alphabetically? Why isn't Discover backend Flatpak in there when I do a search? So I can't prove that search works correctly in here. Where am I? APK search, Ctrl-Shift-V. It's probably already installed as far as I remember. Okay. And I'm going to install the repository, but per user. Ctrl-Shift-T. Who am I? Paste, and then per user. So Flatpak remote add user if not exists, FlatHub, and then the URL. Okay. I should restart the entire computer, of course. I'm going to do it right now. Okay, so I have restarted the computer. I'm going to continue installing software. I don't remember having seen the KCalc desktop calculator application, which should be pre-installed. When you install KDE Plasma, why not install the calculator? There's many keyboards that actually have a dedicated keyboard key for the desktop calculator. On my computer, it's FN F3. So let's see how we install that. Let's install it from Alpine. KCalc. There's no package for KCalc. What is that? That's strange. Calculator. Sort ascending by name. Okay, so again, I cannot prove that search works. APK search KCalc. Of course, it's available. Yeah, so there are some issues either in the Discover backend for APK or inside Discover itself. When used on Alpine Linux. One of the most important issues is this one. Why would it say unable to load applications when in fact it can load applications from two different technologies? There's a ton of applications from Alpine Linux packages, and then a ton of applications from FlatHub. So I have no clue why the home page doesn't look okay. I also don't really know why there exists a home page. Okay, so I have installed KCalc. Let's make sure it's visible in here. It's in here. Let me actually press the dedicated keyboard key and see what happens, although we're in a virtual machine. So Fn F3, and nothing did happen. Okay, what else we don't have installed and we should? A task manager. It's this one. Doesn't work that great. Okay, and let's install. Let's see if we did install Crusader. Let's configure it real fast. Okay, okay. Panel layout, compact, view 12, 12, apply, and then where is it? General viewer, editor / USR / bin / KD / kit. Apply. Let's remove some of the useless bells in here. Too much bling. Too little content. Okay, everything seems to work as expected. Next up, let's install two packages from FlatHub, and then that should be it. I don't really know what's available on FlatHub. Let's see if they have Zoom. How do we do that? All applications, Zoom, search from FlatHub. So it says install from FlatHub user, which is correct. The fact that I don't see the actual standard output from the command line flatpak install is a problem, in my opinion. Is a not implemented yet feature. I should be able to see complete output from the flatpak command line executable, which also tells me about the progress, how much time I still need to wait, and then maybe it offers me a ton of useful additional information, like I don't know, additional packages that could be installed that are optional dependencies, other so-called plugins, maybe language packs, etc. Okay, so there's two images, two screenshots. I'm not sure if this thing works. I have never tested. The Zoom app from the Snap Store does work correctly for me. Next up, how do we go back? Why is this list grayed out? I don't know. All applications. Why doesn't this selection remain active? Let's install. Let's see if they have Visual Studio Code. We have a ton of Visual Studio Code versions, VS Codium, Insiders, Visual Studio Code, and probably more. I'm not sure how well Visual Studio Code works when installed from FlatHub due to the security sandboxing around Flatpak applications. Can read all files and write without asking permissions first. So hopefully this package works correctly. Let's see if launching works. What am I seeing here? Continue without signing in. Cool. Make it yours. AI agents. Okay, and a Flatpak warning. So this Flatpak, although it's available from the official Flatpak App Store, which is FlatHub, is not really maintained by Microsoft or by the Visual Studio Code team. It's running inside the security container. If you want to run things from outside the Flatpak container, so from your host operating system, you might need to use host -spawn and then the rest of the command line. You can make the integrated terminal use the host operating system by default by running the command host -spawn space bash. What workspace are we talking about? Okay, so I am pretty pleased with what I see. The Alpine Linux operating system works correctly. The KDE Plasma was installed correctly. I have installed some additional software. I have been able to use the Discover App Store to do a ton of things. FlatHub and Flatpaks and per-user Flatpaks work correctly. So this was how to install KDE Plasma using the new support that's inside the executable setup-desktop when installing Alpine Linux inside a QEMU virtual machine. Thank you.